These are the highlights of India's smartest podcast, The Ranveer Show. Welcome to TRS Clips. Make sure you hit that bell icon and don't forget to subscribe. Would love for you to shed some light on the US's interests in this whole game. Is it purely the fact that the dragon bear is getting more powerful? Is there even deeper interests?
So the US, the last 30 years, has been the sole superpower after the collapse of the USSR, which one could say that they engineered, right? So they won. They won the Cold War, and everybody thought, yeah, now all the world will be peaceful, everything will be fine, all the problems will go away. No problem ever went away. Now the Chinese are rising. They seek to displace and replace the US. So for the Americans, it is a mortal threat. The US has a very simple doctrine. It's called the Blitzer doctrine. It's a very obscure and less known doctrine. And the doctrine says that any nation, if it rises above a certain threshold, it has to be destroyed. Don't allow any nation to even think of becoming a threat or a competitor to the US. So you see this, the entire history of the 20th and 21st century, all the numerous interventions the Americans have done in various places. You can see this in action and in motion. So the entire Middle East crisis, which has been going on for decades, they have kept it going, they've kept it churning and so on. Now, so they see the Chinese as a big mortal threat. And in the last 20 years, after the rise of Mr. Putin, even the Russians have risen again, and they are also a challenge to the US, because the US, it wants the whole of Europe to come under their orbit. So everything should be a part of NATO, including Ukraine, including all these former Soviet republics. And the Russians see that as a huge challenge. They will not allow it. It is a red line that they will not allow the Americans and NATO to cross. So it's a tussle. The Americans seek global hegemony. There should be no competitor, no rival at all. We want a unipolar world. That's what the Americans have always sought. But in the last 20, 30 years, they messed it up. Because if you look at the US today, it is a deeply divided nation. There is no leadership today in the US. I hate to say this. I hate to say it openly. But if you look at the last 10, 20 years, where's the leadership? People make fun of George W. Bush, but at least he did something, some action. He fed the military industrial complex monster. He did a war in Iraq and all. So he took some kind of affirmative, positive action from the US side. But after him, Mr. Obama has bombed civilians, bombed helpless people. He has given big speeches, but where's the leadership? Speeches and slogans don't make leaders. It's actions that make leaders. So the US is suffering from a lack of leadership. Trump was in office. He was never in power. He was a lame duck president for 4 years. The political class was shocked at his rise, and they never allowed him to do anything at all, to do anything substantial. So Obama did nothing. Trump was not allowed to do anything. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying it how it is. And now you have, who we have. We have Mr. Biden. So and we also have Kamala, Mr. Biden and Kamala Harris. You call that leadership? There's no leadership. So the US is a deeply, deeply divided nation. There are all these internal conflicts that are raging in the US. The race conflict is raging. The class conflict is raging. The rich versus poor divide is widening. It is horrific. You have homelessness rampant in the US. People are pooping on the streets. The US is declining. It's going backwards, backwards, backwards. It's like the decline of the Roman Empire that we are watching. But they still have this vast military machine and economic machine. So they are a declining culture, civilization. It's never been a civilization, sorry. They are a declining empire. But they still have the remnants of power. So they are fighting back against the dying of the light. That's what we are seeing. And they also have the entire big data and all that. So they are using that to fight back against China. So what we are seeing is this clash right now. We could call it a clash of civilizations or a clash of two hegemons who both seek primacy in the globe. So that's what we are seeing. The Americans want global hegemony, but now they are too weak to do that without allies. And that's why they are seeking an Indo-Pacific alliance. They are trying to create the Quad. They have the NATO, which is still there. And they are very deeply upset that India, even though it's part of the Quad, is not supporting them where NATO is concerned, and so on and so forth. So this is the wrenching apart of the global order that we are witnessing. It looks like we are witnessing the beginnings of the end of Pax Americana, the American hegemony in the world. And God knows where we are going to go. If it continues this way, the Chinese will rise and we will have Pax Sinica. The Chinese will take over the world. which in my opinion is not going to be a great thing. So it's still too early to say, but it looks like the US is declining. The Chinese, with the help of the Russians, are rising. India is somewhere in the middle. India is still a small country, small economy. 3 billion is not big enough. It is still just a medium-sized economic power. Once India reaches the $10 trillion threshold, trillion, not billion. Once India reaches $10 trillion threshold of GDP, that's when India will be a sizable power, and it will be able to make its opinions heard, and it will be able to shape its neighborhood at least. So this is going to be a very, very interesting decade. Anything could happen, essentially.